Welcome to Matters Financial, Geopolitical from the Frontier. Apologies for yesterday, but I was at a function around Nairobi becoming an international financial center, and it was organized by the financial sector deepening folks from the UK who are based here. And it was a very interesting discussion, lots of high-level interaction, and it was interesting to be there. Macro thoughts, Brexit woes, and pound volatility spread to 7-year high. You can see that we've had a very volatile period for the pound. It got, I think, to about 138, now at 143.83. And this is all about whether the vote will be to stay in or to come out. I think if they come out, you're going to see a very sharp breakdown in the pound. Home thoughts, the sky at sunset looked like a carnivorous flower. That's Roberto Bolano. From a book I haven't read yet called 2666. I'm reading another one. And on that note, let me put up a photograph of the sunset on Christmas Day in the Tsavo Lugard Falls. I steal into their dreams, he said. I steal into their most shameful thoughts. I'm in every shiver, every spasm of their souls. I steal into their hearts. I scrutinize their most fundamental beliefs. I scan their irrational impulses, their unspeakable emotions. I sleep in their lungs during the summer and their muscles during the winter. And all of this I do without the least effort, without intending to, without asking or seeking it out, without constraints, driven only by love and devotion. As time goes by, the whip crack of the years, the precipice of illusions, the ravine that swallows up all human endeavor, except the struggle to survive. Finally, nothing is ever behind us. Roberto, Bolano, 2666. The grilled baby eels at Arzak look very tasty, don't they? Political reflections, John Williams tweeted, so much for fasten your seatbelts. White House photo of Obama on Air Force One as it came into land in Havana. Excitement palpable. And that made me conclude this is what the Republicans are missing, that the majority of voters in America are now younger and more born free, as it were. And I also think President Obama has been quite sophisticated, less shock and awe, or more oil and stock market warfare, and always, in fact, advancing the US national interest. And I came across this piece in antiwar.com, which explains it quite well, what I mean. The biggest story in Jeffrey Goldberg's 20,000-word report on the Obama Doctrine is President Obama's open break with the foreign policy establishment. The critique of orthodox national security policy thinking that Obama outlined in interviews with Goldberg goes further than anything delivered on the record by a sitting president. It showed that Obama's view on how to define and advance US national security diverges sharply from those of the orthodox views of the national security bureaucracy and Washington foreign policy think tanks on US credibility, the real interests, the United States and the Middle East, and how the United States should respond to terrorism. There's a playbook that presidents are supposed to follow, Obama told Goldberg. The playbook prescribes responses to different events, and those responses tend to be militarized responses. Such a playbook can be a trap that can lead to bad decisions, Obama continued, in the midst of an international challenge like Syria. You can get judged harshly if you don't follow the playbook, even if there are good reasons why it does not apply. Goldberg writes that Obama had come to believe that he was walking into a trap, one laid both by allies and adversaries, and by conventional expectations of what an American president is supposed to do. Obama was implying that he was being pushed into committing US military force to the Syrian conflict, less to eliminate the threat of chemical weapons than to tilt the military balance in favor of the opposition and to support regime change, something Obama did not want to do. On the other hand, Obama's public breakup with the national security elite appears to represent a new stage in the politics of national security, in which broader resistance to those powerful interests may possibly be feasible. The link for the Obama Doctrine from the Atlantic is on rich wrap-ups, like this photo of President Obama in Cuba. New York Times tweeted photographing the complexity and beauty of Cuba, one of the world's few remaining frontiers. I like this photograph of China, and this photograph that the People's Daily tweeted, stunning flock of birds from great white shark shape with the sun becoming its eye, by Jun Shik Shin in South Korea. Many Cubans were actually saying they needed to pinch themselves. Obama makes history. Interesting piece in Bloomberg View, Putin's Syria gamble has already paid off, by Tobin Harshall. Putin says he's withdrawing most Russian forces from Syria because his objectives have been achieved. How to judge that boast? On such goals as keeping Bashar al-Assad in power, increasing Russian influence in the Middle East, restoring Moscow's seat at the table of global power, and sending a message of strength to Islamic extremists inside Russia's own borders, the jury is still out. But it's not too early to consider Russian success on another front, showcasing military strength to potential adversaries, allies, and arms buyers. Essentially, Russia is using their incursion into Syria as an operational proving ground. And Moscow proved quite a bit, and I was saying it tongue-in-cheek when I said he's been showboating, but he certainly has. The Russian military had not been in a conflict at this scale since its disastrous pullout from Afghanistan decades ago. Then you had the 5-day border fracas with Georgia, saying at that time, their efforts were slipshod. Troops were being repeatedly sent into ambushes, lost 6 planes to Georgian air defenses or friendly fire. Saying just 7 years later, the Russians had done a great deal to redeem themselves. In what was primarily an air campaign, they showed a good ability to keep up the tempo of sorties, at least 1,000 a month, efficient base crews, impressive logistics, long-range bomb attacks from bases in Russia, hinted at improved air-to-air refueling capabilities. And then saying Russia also allowed brief glimpses of its new Mi-35M gunship helicopter. Showed surprising capabilities in smart weapons. In October, they launched 26 cruise missiles from Buyan M-class corvettes floating in the Caspian Sea. Western intelligence claims that some fell way short of the target. In Iran, actually, I don't believe that. The fact that such small warships were capable of employing the sophisticated Caliber NK missile system came as a shock. In December, cruise missiles fired underwater by a super stealthy Rostov-on-Don submarine in the Mediterranean struck targets near Raqqa. Given that such sea-based missiles are vastly more expensive than dropping bombs from planes, one can assume that the real aim was sending a message to Washington. Impressive air defense assemblage might have seemed a bit much. This is the advanced S-400 ground-to-air missile systems, and saying that actually the Syria campaign should do nothing to hamper Russia's soaring arms sales at 25% of the global market compared to the US's 33% over the last 5 years. Wow, quite well. So I think Russian military power has evidently had an exponential surge. and I think he used that opportunity to showcase it. Calestis Juma, ICC trial chamber declares Jean-Pierre Bemba guilty for war crimes and crimes against humanity. I believe this is a very important day for international criminal justice, especially when it comes to sexual and gender-based crimes. That's the Chief Prosecutor Fatih Bensouda saying it was a historic day. Jean-Pierre Bemba Gombo was born on the 4th of November 1962, one of 4 vice presidents in the transitional government of the Democratic Republic of the Congo from July 2003 to December 2006. Bemba also leads the Movement for the Liberation of Congo MLC, a rebel group turned political party. He received the second highest number of votes in the 2006 presidential election. In January 2007, he was elected to the Senate. Big thing, big achievement by the ICC, who spent a lot of time not getting very far. Euro 112.45 touched a 1-month high of 113.42, that was on Thursday. Dollar index 95.30, 5-month low touched Friday of 94.578. Japanese yen 112.12 touched 110.67 last week, which was a 16.5-month high for the yen. Swissy 0.9691, the pound 143.75, the Aussie 0.7609, and it remember got as high as 0.681. Recently that was an 8.5-month high. Indian rupee 66.615, South Korean won 1159.29. That's very firm. Rial 361.94, that's firm given where the politics is. Egyptian pound 887, and the rand, that's firm as well, 15.2567, given where that political scenario is. The Atlanta Fed President Dennis Lockhart said there was sufficient economic momentum to justify a further rate hike, possibly as early as the meeting scheduled for the end of April. San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank chairman told Market News that April or June would be potential times for a rate hike. Put up an image of the dollar since 2011, you can see it's been in a big bull market. I'll put up a 1-year chart, I think it's going to snap back from here. You can put a stop around 94. Euro dollar 112.43, 114.50 is the key resistance area that we pushed through it once last year. Why selling the euro isn't always a winner? Another hefty Eurozone current account surplus in January, 25.4 billion euros. And let me put up a 1-year chart of the dollar yen. I still think we're going to 105, we're now at 112.08. Gold, I'll put up a 6-month chart trading just over 12.50. That's had a tremendous 2016 start to the year. But 12.51 census is the key pivot. Crude oil is last trading at $41.56. That's right up there. Recent highs, which are probably about 4.5-month highs. Feels tired, but we could go up to 45. The oil market always overshoots both ways. Jamaica was the best frontier market in 2015. A hat tip to Samuel Carosi, who I follow on Twitter, who gave the top 5 frontier markets earlier this morning. Ivory Coast records GDP growth of 10.3% in 2015, fulfilling one of President Alassane Ouattara's election promises to create double-digit growth. He said on Monday, while the rate was well above an international monetary figure of 8.6%, it's an outlier in sub-Saharan Africa. A lot has to do with cocoa, its main export, which has performed well when you consider, put up a 1-year chart, what's happened with other commodities. Backward integration is key to Africa's growth prospects. That's from the Africa CEO Forum. Continent only accounts for a dismal 2% of the global cocoa revenue, despite producing about 70% of the world's cocoa. It is time to industrialize Africa, diversify its economies. Africa must become a global powerhouse in food and agriculture. But to do that, we must solve our energy problem. Business can't be done in the dark. President Museveni has apparently suspended the pipeline decision after meeting President Kenyatta. Two heads of state agreed to hold further talks in Kampala in a fortnight to allow their technical teams to complete comprehensive reviews of what it would take to build a crude oil pipeline through Tanzania and Kenya. So Kenya's fighting hard because there was a sense that this was a fait accompli. President Museveni in Tanzania and President John Magufuli apparently reached a deal to build a 1,120-kilometer oil pipeline between Tanga and Uganda. Total has previously also raised security concerns over the Kenyan route, which would run close to the volatile northeastern region, where militant groups such as Al-Shabaab remain a threat. Some folks think this is a way for Total to put pressure on Tullow, but let's see, and I just concluded by saying Pipelanistan wars. South African oil shares up 6.18% this year and at 19-month highs. Dollar rand, last time I looked, 15.23. I think the rand is once again the sell. Yesterday was the anniversary of Sharpeville, and I saw this signboard, a photograph of it. Egyptian EGX30 up 6.97% year to date, up 22.55% in March. Nigerian all share down 9.56% so far this year. The Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index down 3.94% so far this year. Africa Confidential is reporting Zimbabwe clearing debts. Zimbabwe has approached Algeria for $900 million to help clear its debt repayment arrears, financial sources in Harare have told Africa Confidential. Zimbabwe owes $1.8 billion to international financial institutions, including the World Bank, the IMF, and the African Development Bank. It needs to clear the arrears in order to gain access to new credit. Total foreign debt stands at $10.8 billion. The broad terms of the debt repayment schedule were agreed with international creditors on the sidelines of the annual meetings of the IMF and World Bank Peru last October. Here in Kenya, the central bank held its benchmark lending rate at 11.5% yesterday. I did an interview with Apurva Sanghi, who is the lead economist for the World Bank here in Kenya, Rwanda, and Eritrea. Do take a look at that interview. My piece over the weekend was Eurobond tales and the noise around it. In 2014, the government of Kenya issued two Eurobonds. The first bond was a 5.875% coupon, 5-year bond, and the second a 10-year bond with a 6.875% coupon. First offering drew bids of 8.8 billion, and the government sold 500 million of the 5-year, 1.5 billion of the 10-year. Subsequently, the government tapped both issues, added 250 million to the 5-year tranche, paying a 5% yield, and 500 million to the 10-year tranche at 5.9%. It is worth noting that the Treasury received a higher price in the tap, i.e. they sold bonds for more than 100. The price was around 106 for the 10-year bond, and will be redeeming those same bonds at 100, making a turn, which few commentators noted at the time. The tap was a slick piece of work by the Treasury. Remember a simple lesson when it comes to bonds. Prices rise, yields go down, prices fall, yields go up. The 10-year bond price traded a high price around 106 through April 2015. Subsequently, from April 2015 through January 2016, the price of our Eurobond fell from 106 to a low of 84. That 84-106 price range equates to a 9.18% yield at 84 versus a 5.9% yield at 106. At a rate of 9.8%, we were essentially shuttered out of the capital markets momentarily. Now it's worth overlaying the news flow over the time frame I've outlined, and you will recall that the high yield coincided with the political furore around the Eurobond. I recall being at a farewell party for the then outgoing British High Commissioner and coming across the opposition leader And I could not help saying, Mapira, Mapira, you're scoring goals. And credit is due for what was a seriously effective political onslaught. Subsequently, the same opposition leader held a news conference with the Foreign Correspondents Association of East Africa. And in that news conference, it was alleged that the Federal Reserve Bank was complicit in the Eurobond heist. Such an accusation was just not credible, it was incredible. It was a comment that spoke to a complete lack of understanding about how central banks operate, and impugning the bona fides of the Federal Reserve was also mind-boggling. And it speaks to how we are in a domestic bubble, but simply extrapolating our hothouse into the international sphere was seriously naive. It turns out that the press conference was a buy signal. International investors understood at that moment there was no beef in the propaganda. Since hitting a high yield of 90.8% and a low price of 84, the bond has rallied practically in a straight line. And the yield was last at 7.65%, with the price just a whisker away from 95. That's a stunning rebound, and our bond has outperformed all its sub-Saharan African peers in 2016. The IMF have further boosted this rally by approving new arrangements for Kenya totaling $1.5 billion, which is the biggest commitment by the IMF for an arrangement of this nature in Africa. Kenya has an outstanding relationship with the IMF, as evidenced when Madame Lagarde visited in 2014. We are a poster child right now, and let's keep it that way in Africa for the IMF. Madame Lagarde has tried to cajole President Buhari earlier in the year into relaxing his intransigence over the Naira unsuccessfully. South Africa's Zuma must have a limit short position in the South African Rand because he is seemingly determined to crash it. The President of Zambia dialed up the IMF last week. What we see around Africa today is a lot of irrational actors. We look a lot more rational in the comparison. Moody's is saying that the IMF loan will shield Kenya, in particular at roughly 20% of Kenya's current stock of reserves. The IMF facility would provide a significant boost to official foreign exchange reserve buffers, which was 7.3 billion as of 10th March, which would mitigate the effect of any external shock. In particular, by targeting a reduction in the fiscal deficit of 3% of GDP over the next 2 years, as well as continued public financial management reforms, the IMF program further commits Kenya to its stated objective of fiscal consolidation, and this will help prevent policy slippages, particularly as the country approaches general elections in 2017. The Kenya shilling, 101.44. Nairobi all share minus 0.43% this year. Nairobi NSE 20 minus 2.54% this year. Uchumi closes 5 branches and sacks 253. Kipnitich said the closure of the branches is aimed at reducing the retailer's operational costs, enabling it to concentrate its efforts on a leaner structure. Their closure will enable us to channel our resources to fewer branches and optimize operations for maximum gain. The affected branches are Taj, Mall, Embu, Eldoret, Sugarland, Nakuru, and Kisii. Final point there is the link for the share price of Uchumi. Once again, thank you for stopping by. I'm grateful.